So TKInterface is a Python library, like I said, that is specifically geared toward allowing you to create graphical user interface programs. And it does change our paradigm a little bit, and I'll explain what I mean by that. But it shifts us to a new way of thinking about programs from what we've been sort of approaching them with our command line applications that we've developed so far. However, you will still use a lot of the same sort of logic and functions and classes and building out programs. You'll just use them in a slightly different way. So TKInterface is a Python library. It usually is included with a standard Python install. Those of you that are Mac users out there, be aware that the version of TKInterface that ships with the version of Python that's included on Mac is massively outdated. So if you want to use a Mac and you're going to get into TKInterface, one of the things I recommend is installing the most up-to-date version of Python, at least the newest release version of Python would be good. And that includes a newer version of TKInterface. And then you can make sure you update your interpreter in your project to reflect that new version of Python. And that should take care of any installation issues you have with TKInterface. If you have Python, and including if you have a newer version of PyCharm, you should be okay, though, because TKInterface is usually included. The interesting thing about TKInterface is that it creates a graphical user interface, but it actually connects with the system level controls. So if you create a window, it's going to look like a native window on your operating system. It's going to look like you created it using C++ in the Mac OS or the Windows OS or Linux. And you'll see when I start showing you pictures of the controls that I'll show you 3 versions of them so you can see what they look like on different platforms. But if I take the same code that I wrote on my Mac and I run it on a Windows computer, all of a sudden those windows will look like they were born on a Windows computer. So it's kind of nice in that way that it blends with the rest of your operating system. And if you have a standalone Python script that uses TKInterface, you can actually run it as an independent program on your desktop as long as you have all your Python variables set up correctly. You can run it as though it's a Windows native program or a Mac native program, and it will look and feel like anything else that runs on that platform. The other thing that's interesting or important to remember about TKInterface is that it organizes everything in a hierarchy. We sort of have played around with this a little bit with some of our other concepts, but what that means is that it has containers that have containers inside the containers, and that's sort of how it thinks and organizes objects. It's not too complicated though, but I will point that out as we're going through some of the different coding aspects.